What do you think will be the role of Hong Kong in this China setup, the Great Bay Area setup? It will be eventually like another Chinese city, but more expensive, or it will keep its uniqueness?
So that's an interesting term you use, another Chinese city. So I don't think there's anything wrong. We are a Chinese city. We are a city within China.
Yeah,
what we must do, and I made this comment before, is strive to be the best city in China. And we are well on our way for doing that. We are without a doubt the most international city of China. I mean,
for sure.
That's our historical privilege, is that we have always been westward looking. And the West has always come here because we were the stepping ground for China. And that has also not changed. We have an independent judiciary. We have a rule of law here that is separate to mainland China. And we have a currency that is separate to mainland China. And from a purely financial point of view, we have an exchange system here where people money can come in out quite easily. So, sorry, they're doing work downstairs.
No
nothing I can do about that.
No.
But also, Hong Kong remains the third largest art market in the world. Richard Lin here. So this is actually the largest Richard Lin painting, I believe, in the world. And again, obviously, people will look at this and think, oh, well, he just copied Mark Rothko. He didn't. He was doing it before. Okay, so and at the same time, and they are very different. So, and this is our master artist. These are two pieces of his work, Xiao Qin. So Xiao Qin was born in the 1930s, and you look at that painting. And you have to put this into context. This was an artist in 1962 painting very contemporary art, living in Milan, and he created an entire art movement. And his works are now, he's again internationally respected.
What would be the main difference between Hong Kong and Singapore, because it was like long-time rivals, long-time competitors, like in terms of anything, like the living as a foreigner, or the vibe, the atmosphere, like anything that comes to your mind when you compare these two places?
Yeah, so I mean, I know Singapore. I had the privilege of meeting Lee Kuan Yew a few times, who I thought was an amazing individual.
Wow.
He's the only man who lived his life and at the end looked back and said, I didn't build a company, I built a country. And what he did was amazing. And he said himself, he was not a great believer in democracy, because democracy would have taken, had he chosen a fully open democratic path, it would have taken Singapore 150 years longer to be fully integrated. And he was aware that Singapore had to be a melting pot of cultures.
Yeah.
And I think he's done it amazingly well. Hong Kong is very different. This is pretty much, you have your expats and you have your Hong Kongers. Okay. The biggest difference between Hong Kong and Singapore, so you mentioned rivalry. Rivalry is never a bad thing. And Hong Kong and Singapore compete in very different markets. Yes, everybody is after being a dominant financial center in the East. Singapore, I suppose, has become the private banking center of the East. But Hong Kong, we still have most of the international investment banks are here. The asset management flow that has gone to Singapore, some will stay, some will come back. They are very big pies, and there's enough of that to kind of go around. I suppose for me, Singapore, when I'm there, I mean, I don't live in Singapore, so I'm a guest, and I see it being, nothing has. Of course, things have changed, but the essence of Singapore, Orchard Road, to me, is the same as it was 40 years ago. The Hard Rock Cafe is still in the same building on the same corner that it was, I think, 30 years ago. I don't know when it first opened there. But, Singapore is also a country, and that's the difference. Singapore is a country.
Yeah.
Hong Kong is a city. So we are competing at very different levels here.
Correct.
Okay, and but we are both answerable ultimately to our people, and that's providing a great quality of life for our people. Lee Kuan Yew has done an amazing job in that, and his successor, Goh Tok Chong, then Lee Hsien. Singapore provides incredibly well for its people, and I think that it's attractive to foreigners, as is Hong Kong is attractive to foreigners. Yeah. Competition, yes, but are we at each other's throats with blades? No. Yeah. So is their airport nicer than ours? It depends whether you like carpet or you don't like carpet. That's how I look at it. We don't have carpet; they have carpet. Okay. They have a waterfall. We have the largest sky bridge in the world. So, what do you want? It's up. It's oranges and apples.
What was the biggest challenges for you, like, on the way for the last 27 years to make it in Hong Kong?
To make it in Hong Kong, I suppose. Interesting. One of the things I suppose that makes it different and makes it easier is you have to have first you must commit. You must commit to a place. So this is going to be my home. And then it is also breaking away to some extent from the expat community. Because
Yeah.
if you just live within the confines of kind of a transient lifestyle, and all people talk about is I've only got 12 months from now, 18 months from now, I'll be leaving, then it's quite self-defeating because all you're going to do is constantly be making new friends, as it were, or new acquaintances, I would say.
Yes.
So I think for me, partly is because most of my friends in Hong Kong are Hong Kong Chinese, and if they are expats, they're expats who have been here 40, 50 years. I'm part of a group called the Tuesday Lunch Club, and we meet obviously every Tuesday for lunch. And I was talking, we have past taipans of Jardines and Swire, and they've all been here 40, 50 years. They've never left Hong Kong in terms of they keep a home here, but yes, of course, they've had the financial freedom to have homes overseas and to travel, to have always traveled in their working life. And obviously these people are now retired, but they have great stories to tell. And they are the people who lived through the golden age of Hong Kong, as you described it, but stay here because, like me, they agree that the golden age of Hong Kong isn't over. And I'm not going to say it's to begin, because I believe we are constantly living in an age of opportunity in Hong Kong. And I would challenge anyone who comes here to tell me a different story. So, and I apply that to China too. I often say to some of my friends in the UK, I'm like, you could take a person from an average environment in the United Kingdom and drop them into a suburb of Shanghai, and in 6 months' time, tell them they're going back to the United Kingdom, and they'll probably say, hang on a minute, no, I want to stay here. The trains are amazing, the infrastructure is amazing, but I think the key will be that your mobile phone doesn't disconnect every time you get in a lift, and when you go through a tunnel, you don't lose signal. And I know they're silly things, but you look at the development of infrastructure in China and how it benefits everyday living for a world that is a digital world. I'm an analog person. I still write with a fountain pen. But for people growing up in a digital world, it's very frustrating when you are living in, and it's not just the United Kingdom, actually, it's most of Europe, you lose your phone signal, and when you get it back, you're like, oh my God, I have 3G, yay. They're all growing up in a 5G world. And I think all of that ties in to the future bind of humanity. And without getting too political, the world is obviously very fractured at the moment. But China is playing a very long-term game here. And that long-term game is part of its place in the global society, but part of its place in dealing with humanity, both for its own people and for how it deals with other nations. So.
Yeah.